Welcome to another video tutorial. In this video, we're going to take a look at how to create a cutaway system. So this is basically going to give you the ability to cut away walls when you enter a building to give you better visibility when you're inside buildings, depending on the rotation of the camera. So it's kind of like an X-ray system, basically. So walls and objects that would otherwise obscure the vision of your character and potentially other characters can be hidden away when they're sort of closest to the camera. So this is just one example of how you could implement the system, just to give you an idea of how you might go about it in RPG in a Box. So we're going to start off very simply with this simple structure here that's literally just a floor and some surrounding walls. And then we'll take the concept once we've explained how to use it, and we'll apply it to an actual building that's got a roof and multiple walls, multiple floors, so you can see how to combine it with the way buildings normally would work in RPG in a Box. So before we get into the main video, let me also mention up front that if you look in the YouTube description for this video, there will be a link to the forum thread for this particular video. So feel free to check that out. It will have links to not only this video, but also the download files for this particular project. So if you want to open it yourself in RPG in a Box and mess around with the things we do in this video, you can do that. There will also obviously be, a place to ask questions or make comments in the forum thread as well. So be sure to check the YouTube description for the link to the forum thread. So with that said, let's get started. So the first thing we need to do is we need to think about what parts of this building do we want to hide depending on where the camera is currently looking. Now this is really only an issue for third-person games, because obviously if you're first person, then you're always going to see out the eyes of your character. So wherever you're looking, you're going to be able to see things. But in a third-person game, where the camera is sort of pulled out, maybe at this angle, if the player was to, for example, walk into this building and then turn immediately left or right, they're then going to be hidden by the wall. Now, in this case, the wall is only, 16 voxels high, so you would still be able to see a bit of the player. However, if we were to add another height to this wall, now all of a sudden, that would obscure the player's visibility. So this is where, a cutaway system can actually be quite useful. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by selecting all of the walls that make up the north-facing wall, because if we look down here in this positional info box, it says that the camera, this camera here, the one we're using at the moment, is currently facing north. You can see as I spin round, it changes to east, south, west, and then back to north again. So we can use this information to make our cutaway system. So here's how we're going to do this. We're going to start with facing north, makes sense, and we're going to select all of the walls that face towards the camera. Oops, what happened there? We're going to start by selecting all of the wall pieces that are nearest the camera for the north direction, okay? So I'm going to select all of these, and I'm going to hit the G key, which is going to add them to a group. You could also right-click and do grouping, add to group that way. And we're going to type north. Now, it's important that you type these as I'm writing them here. So the same capitalization and the same name. So I'm going to use the name of the camera direction, so north, for this group, okay? Then what you're going to do is you're then going to select, and we're also, it's important to note, I'm including both corners, so corner to corner, okay? You're going to do the same for the east direction, So I'm going to click this corner and select all the way down to this corner, okay? So from, again, corner to corner, press the G key, this goes into group east, because that would be the group for when we're turning. If we were to turn towards the left, we'd then be facing east. And then we're going to select the walls at the back, corner to corner, press the G key, these go into a group called south. And then finally, corner to corner on the right-hand side, these go into a group called west. So we've now got 4 groups. If we go to the map properties with nothing selected, here's the groups section. So again, if you've got nothing selected, in the map properties section, you'll see the groups drop-down list here. These are the groups we've made so far. So we've got an east, a north, a south, and a west. Okay, and so east is these walls here. If you click the arrow, it will select them so you can see what's in that group. North is all of the ones in the front, including the doorway. South is all the ones at the back, like so. And then finally, west is all the ones on the right. Okay, so just check that you've got the right things in the right group. Now, if you wanted to leave the doorway visible, you would just remove it from the north group. So you would right-click this, go to grouping, go to manage groups, and you would, well, actually what you would do in this case is you'd right-click and you'd do remove from all groups, okay? And then that way that would remove the doorway from the north group. I'm going to leave it in there so that gets hidden as well. But, you know, if there's anything you don't want to be hidden, just make sure it's not included in any of these groups, okay? So now we've made our groups, we now need to think about when should this cutaway system actually work? Because we don't want it to work all the time. For example, when we're outside of a building, there's no need to cut away the walls of the building, because if we're not inside the building, then it's not obscuring our vision. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the tile just before we go into the building, and we're going to right-click on the tile, and we're going to go down to scripting, and we're going to add a quick script. And then we're going to change the code, and we're going to type player.property, and we're going to call the property inside, and obviously call it whatever you want. And we're going to set that to false, because this is the tile that's outside the building. So we want to tell the game that the player is currently not inside, okay? Click validate on that. And then we're going to do the opposite for the tile just inside the building. So just on the other side of the doorway, we're going to right-click, scripting, add quick script, and change this to player.property inside equals true, because now you are inside the building. So we can use this property to track whether we are inside the building or not, and therefore track when the cutaway system should work. The cutaway system should only work if that property is true, okay? If you're inside a building, then activate the cutaway system, okay? Now, before we get to actually setting up the main script that's going to basically make the cutaway system work or function, we need to make a couple of custom functions that are going to make our life easier when it comes to just writing our scripts. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up to the game configuration panel, and we're going to go to global functions, function show underscore walls. You can obviously call this, again, whatever you want, but make sure whatever you call it, it has 2 parentheses at the end. So an open and close brackets at the end of your name, and then type begin, and then 2 lines down, end semicolon. Then go up 1 and press tab. So what this function is going to do is it's going to basically do 4 things. It's just going to show group, north, which is one of our groups, and then we're going to copy this line, and we're going to paste it 3 more times underneath, and we're going to change each group name to the ones that we set earlier. So north, east, south, and west. So what this function is basically going to do is it's just going to show all of those groups. So if they've been made invisible at any point, they're going to be brought back, okay? This will just allow us to type show walls every time we want to show those 4 groups without having to manually type show group each one, okay? If we do it once in a function, then it means never again in our code do we ever have to type all those 4 times again. So we're just making our life easier as we prepare to write the cutaway script, okay? So we'll click OK on that. So now we actually get to our cutaway system. So what we need to do is we need to save our map because we've made these changes here with these 2 tiles. And we now need to go to the script editor and we're going to make a new script. And we're going to call this cutaway_script. Obviously you can call it whatever you want. Click edit, and I'm going to do it in the text editor, but if you want to use the nodes, you can. So the first thing we're going to do is if player.property inside is equal to true, then do this, and then put an end, and then inside the condition with a tab indentation, you then want to write $cam dir. Again, you can call this variable whatever you want. I'm just going to call it that. Actually, no, the first thing you want to do, is we want to call our function show walls. Then you're going to type $cam dir, or whatever you want to call the variable, equals, and then you need to type str, open and close brackets. That's basically going to convert whatever is inside these brackets into a string. And what we're going to do is we're going to type inside the brackets camera.direction. So what that's going to do is that's going to take the data for the camera direction and convert it to a string, which is then going to be stored inside this variable here, cam dir. Again, you can call this whatever you want. And then what we're going to do is we're going to type hide_group $cam dir. Okay, so that will hide the relevant group based on what the data is that's in the camera direction. This is why we called our groups the exact same name as the camera directions, so that way we can just use the camera direction passed directly into the hide group function, because it will take the camera direction that's now been converted to a string and it will see it as the name of a group. So it will then hide the relevant group. Okay? So we'll apply and save that. And that is our script. Now, the next thing we need to do is we need to tell our game, when does this script get triggered? Well, there's a really handy event for that. So what you want to do is go to the game configuration panel again, global event scripts section, and there'll be a camera direction changes event. We want to drop this down and set this to cutaway script, or whatever you called your script that has the cutaway system in it, and click OK. Okay. Now, there's only 2 other things we need to do, and then we're done. So right now we've got a system where when you walk into this building, it's going to set the player's property inside to true, which means that then when we rotate the camera, this script will be true. So when it's true, it's going to hide the relevant walls for the camera direction. Okay. Now, we need a way so that when we leave the building, whatever's been hidden based on our camera direction comes back. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the map editor. We're going to click on this tile, right click and scripting, edit quick script. And we're going to add underneath this line, show walls. So once again, we're going to run our custom function. This is just going to show everything that's hidden. So regardless of which group was currently hidden, it's just going to bring them all back. So it's a nice fail-safe to make sure that any group that could possibly be hidden comes back when you leave the building. Okay. Now, what we also need, however, is a way that when we enter the building, it initially starts hiding walls, because at the moment we've set it up so that it only hides walls when you start rotating the camera. So the moment we enter the building, nothing's going to be hidden. So what we should probably have happen is, at the very least, these walls should disappear the moment you enter a building. But also, what if you enter the building facing a different direction? What if the camera is facing this way when you enter the building? Then you don't want this wall to disappear. You want the wall to the east to disappear. So for that, what we're going to do is we're going to right-click on the tile that's inside the building, edit the quick script we set on it, And on the line below here, we're going to type execute script, and then in quotes, cutaway script. So what that will do is that will just trigger manually our script. So that will then remove the relevant wall based on the direction that we're facing when we enter the building, okay? This tile will only trigger that once when you enter the building, okay? When you then spin the camera around, it will do its own thing every time you spin the camera around, okay? So the two are working sort of separately, but they work together in a way, if that makes sense. So we're going to save that. And now let's go into game and just see where we're at, see if this is working. So here we are in the game. So currently, if I spin the camera around, nothing is happening. The walls are not disappearing because we're not inside the building. So that property on the player is not true, okay? Now, as soon as we enter the building, it should set that property to true, but it should also, let's go in facing this camera direction, it should automatically hide these walls here, okay? But it's also now set the property to true. So if I zoom out and spin the camera around, you can see that as soon as the camera changes from north to east, it then brings back the north wall and hides the east wall. And then if we turn to the south, it brings back the east wall, hides the south wall, and then it hides the west wall, brings back the south wall, and then hides the north wall and brings back the west wall, and etc. And as you spin, no matter which way you go, whether it's counterclockwise, clockwise, it will always hide the wall that's closest to the camera, right? So any wall, so for example here, the wall is not obstructing the player because the player is in front of the wall. However, if we were to rotate the camera in such a way that now the wall would be in front of the player, it hides the wall. So therefore, it's never obstructing the vision of the player. And likewise, if we were to, face this wall now, as soon as we turn to face it, it will hide that wall. And then as soon as we leave the building, it all comes back, but it also turns off that property. So now when we spin the camera, it's no longer hiding walls. Okay? So that's in essence how to create a cutaway system. It's literally just putting your walls into groups based on the direction that they're facing, and then passing that information into a script that's assigned to camera direction changes event, and then just passing that direction into a hide group command, and it will hide that relevant group based on your camera direction. Now, some things we need to go over that's important to note. If you look at my script for the cutaway system, you can see that the first thing I'm doing is I'm using the show walls function. Why am I doing that when the whole point of this script is to hide walls? It's to make sure that, because obviously what we want to do is when we spin the camera around, so let me write it might be easier for you to see. So let's say we go in facing north, okay? So we obviously want to hide group north when we enter the building, okay? But then when we spin the camera around to face east, obviously what we want to do is then hide group east, okay? That's fine. But because we're no longer facing north, we also should bring back to north wall, which we hid earlier, right? So you obviously do need to bring back a group as well as hide another group, because if you've changed camera direction, then not only do you want to hide the new group, but you need to bring back the old group, okay? Now, if you were to do it in this order, which is hide one group and then show the others, it kind of glitches out because it's sort of trying to hide one group but also bring back others. And so because you do it in that order, the engine kind of, for some reason, has a problem with that. It sort of glitches out in the sense that what would happen is, in this case, both groups would be hidden. And then when you change the camera to south, then north would come back and it would hide both east and south, right? So by showing the groups first, it fixes that problem. That problem just doesn't exist if you show groups first. So what we're doing is, when you enter north, obviously the first time round, you will hide group north. if you spin the camera around to, let's say, west, what it will do first is bring back north and every other group in case, and it's good to just, even if you know you only need to bring back north, it's a good idea to just, that's why we've got this function here that just does them all. It's a good idea just to bring them all back anyway, because even if you have a show group command for a group that's already visible, it just won't do anything. But it's just a nice catch-all to make sure that just in case a group is hidden that shouldn't be, you are definitely bringing them all back except for the one that you don't want, okay? So in this case, we're going to show north by showing every wall and then hide what is relevant to this camera direction, okay? Or in this case, west, sorry. If you've gone in facing west, or if you turn the camera west, then it will get rid of west. And then if you spin the camera around south, the first thing it does is bring back west and then hide south. Does that make sense? So that's why this order of process is important, because you'll find that if you do it the other way around, when you spin the camera, it does hide the right group, but it doesn't necessarily bring back the right groups. So, you'll find that some groups are missing when they should be coming back. So, as I say, if you want to find that out in your own time, feel free to do so. But that's why we're doing it this way, okay? As long as you follow this, it will work, okay? So, that's one thing I wanted to mention, is why I'm using show walls in this function is in this script, is obviously we need to show everything first and then hide the relevant group. But the other thing that's nice about this cutaway system is if you want to ever add anything to it, so let's say, for example, we want to make this building a bit higher. So let's add some more walls in, first of all. So we'll just quickly add some walls back into this building. But let's say we also have some objects. So let's go to our objects panel and let's move into the building a bit. Let's put a bed up against this wall. Let's put a bookcase up against this wall. Maybe a chair there, something like that, okay? So now what we can do is we can just simply redo, well, not redo, we just simply repeat what we did earlier. So we're going to select these walls, add them to group east along with the lower walls. So they'll just go into the same group. Select these walls, add them to group north. Select these walls, add them to group west. Select these walls, add them to group south, and then select the bed. Shift select the chair. These should also go into group south. Select the bookcase. That goes into group west. And that's all you need to do. Now, when we play the game again, our script will automatically include these new things into the cutaway system. So if we enter the building, now all of the north walls disappear, including the top layer. If we turn to face east, then these walls will disappear and these walls will come back. The north walls will come back. And then as soon as we just move forward a bit, as soon as we spin around to face south, not only will this wall disappear, but the bed and the chair will also disappear. And then if we walk in front of the bookcase, spin the camera west, the bed and the chair come back, the bookcase and the wall disappear. Okay? So now we've included some more walls and some objects into our cutaway system. And then same thing again, if we leave the building, as soon as we leave, everything should come back. So all of the groups come back. The bookcase, the bed, the chair, the walls, they all come back. Okay? Now, an important thing to note about hiding groups is that if you have an interactable object, let's say this bookcase, you could click on it and it would, give you a book or a message would pop up or whatever. You could interact with it in some way and it does something. If it's currently hidden, then it's not going to be clickable. So you'll need to obviously rotate the camera to a point where it comes back, and then you can interact with it. So it's important to know that if you're just hiding decorative furniture, then it's fine. It doesn't matter, whether it's hidden or not. But if it's an interactable object and you're currently at a camera direction where it's a hidden object, then the player's not going to be able to interact with it because they're not going to see it and it's not going to be interactable. So just be mindful of that just because even though technically it is still there, it's just hidden, but it also isn't interactable either, okay? So other things that you can do that make the cutaway system even more sort of useful in sort of game design, but it's entirely up to you whether you do this or not as a sort of, designer choice. But one of the things I like to do as well is I like to put the outside into a group as well. So let's just select all of these tiles except for the one that leads into the building. So I'm going to select everything but this tile here, the one that's got the script on it for when we leave the building. And I'm going to hit the G key and I'll just call this, I don't know, grass, something like that. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add that to these two scripts. So I'm going to right click, edit quick script, and as well as show walls, we will show group grass. Validate, and then we'll click this tile, right click, edit script, and as well as executing the cutaway script, we'll hide group grass. Just put a semicolon in anyway. So now if we play the game, then you'll get this sort of setup where, let's say you're outside and it's got, trees and rocks and bushes and things, and then you've got this building that you can see in front of you. And then as soon as you enter the building, not only does it cut away the wall for that you're facing, but it also then hides the outside. So now it just declutters your screen. So if you're, somebody playing the game, the emphasis now is what's going on in this building. You can clearly, for me, it just makes more visual clarity. It just hides away everything that's not needed in this moment. So, as you turn around, you can just see what's going on in this building. And then as soon as you leave, it all comes back. So it's like as you enter a building, it's almost like having the building be its own map, but without being in a separate map, because you're just sort of isolating the building at this point. And it's a nice way of drawing attention and focus to this building and nothing else. Because if you didn't hide this group while you're inside the building, then everything that's going on outside could be distracting as well, and you might miss something that's important in this room. So by sort of focusing the player's attention into a building when they're inside it, I think is a nice idea. Some games do that, and so I thought I'd, demonstrate using it in this example. And in combination with the cutaway system, it's really nice because it then just means that no matter which camera direction you're facing, you're also never obscuring the player's view from what's going on in this building either. And then the moment they leave, it all comes back. Okay, so that's pretty much the cutaway system in its basic form, okay? So to close out, I want to talk about how to apply it to an actual building. Because obviously, unless you make a building that doesn't have a roof or multiple stories or anything like that, then, this is good to know how to do it, but how do you then actually put it into use with an actual building? So I've created a building here that's got a set of stairs that goes up to an upper floor, and there's also a roof on this building as well. So there's quite a bit more going on in this scenario. So let me show you how you would set this up to, first of all, work as a building, where as you enter it, the roof disappears, and then as you go up and down stairs, the floors come back and things like that. We'll set this up, first of all, to work like a building, and then we'll add our cutaway system on top, okay? And I'll also talk about some important things to know about setting up your building when it comes to a cutaway system. So let's start by, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to select all of the roof pieces. So nothing to do with the walls. So we're literally just selecting, first of all, the roof edges. So if you hold shift and click whenever you want to add something to a selection, that's what we'll do. So hold shift and click and drag to get these final pieces here. And then we'll shift and click to add these top flat pieces. So we have the entire roof selected now. So if I hit the G key, I'll add these to a group called roof. What that now allows me to do is in the map editor, I can go to the group section, select roof, and I can hide the roof group. Now I can actually see into my building, okay? Now you need to remember, and I must remember to do this before we play test, that if you want these groups to be visible again in game, you must bring them back in the map editor. So I must remember to do that, okay? But what I'm also going to do now that we can see what is in essence the top floor, I'm going to select all the floor pieces now. So I'm going to select all of these floor tiles, holding shift to add them to the selection. Just to spin the camera around and get these last ones. Hit the G key and I'll call this floor 2. Okay? And then what we can do is we can now select floor 2 in the groups section and hide that. So now we can see fully into our building. So in order to turn this into a functional building, what we need to do is we need to select this tile on the outside and we want to add a quick script to it. And all we simply want to do is show group. Oops, helps if you type show group floor 2, because we want to bring that back because we're no longer in the building. And we also want to show group roof, because we also want to bring the roof back. We're no longer in the building, so there's no point X-ray in it, right? Then we want to right-click the tile inside the building, just on the inside, and we want to reverse that. We want to hide group roof. Doesn't matter which order you do them in, just as long as you hide both of them. And we hide group floor 2. Apply. And then what you want to do is click here on the tile just in front of the staircase. We're going to right click and add a script to this tile, where what we're going to do is show group. Hide group. Hide group floor 2. That's all we're going to hide with this tile. And then we're going to select the stairs and we're going to add a script to them. Stairs need to be a tile. Make sure that obviously if you're using this setup that stairs need to be tiles, otherwise you can't walk up and down them anyway. So select the stair tile and then this is going to be show group floor 2. So just to quickly go over that again, now that we've set this all up. So we've got 4 tiles in total. This one is showing both the roof and the floor above this one. When we enter the building, it's hiding both the roof and the floor above this one. When we step on this tile, if the floor above is visible, it's going to hide it. If not, it's not going to do anything. And if we step on the stairs, if the floor above is currently hidden, then it will show it. Otherwise, not do anything. Okay? So this will now work as a means of giving us a building where, as you go up and down floors, it's only showing the floor that's relevant to our situation. Now, what we can also do, like we did with the other section of this map, is I will also select everything but the tile in front. By the way, if you want to deselect something, so, oops, I added that into the group and I didn't mean to, or into the selection, sorry, then what you can do is hold Alt and Shift and click the tile and it will remove it from the group. So again, we're going to select everything but this tile and I'll add it to a group called Grass 2 just to distinguish it from the other group. Okay, so then what we'll do is we'll click on this tile, we'll add that to the script as well. So not only will we show those, but we'll also show group Grass 2, validate, and then in this tile, we'll hide group grass 2. Okay, so let's give this a test and see how this works. Again, this is not the cutaway system. We've just set this up at the moment just to function as a workable multi-story building. So if we step on this tile here, which will take us to map 2. Now here again, this is a case in point. We forgot to bring back the groups. So let me bring back floor 2 and bring back the roof so that they're visible by default in the game. Make sure you do that, otherwise you'll get situations like that where your building isn't complete when you get to it. So again, we'll step on this tile, takes us to the second section. So now as soon as we enter this building, let's zoom out a little bit. As soon as we enter this building, the roof should disappear, as well as the floor tiles on the floor above, and also all of this outside. Okay, so it gives us a nice view. Obviously, if there were objects on this ground floor, like, kitchen counter or tables, chairs, whatever, you would now clearly be able to see them. Whereas when we go upstairs, these tiles would now obscure that if those tiles were visible downstairs. Okay, and then as soon as you step on this tile here, the one I'm on now, once you come downstairs, it turns those off, right? So this is how you get an upstairs and downstairs effect. Okay, so as soon as you step on the stairs, it turns on the floor above. As soon as you step off the stairs onto the tile below, they hide. Okay, and that's your building system. Okay, and you never bring back the roof while you're inside the building. Okay, and then as soon as you leave the building and step on this tile, everything will come back. The roof, the floor above, but also the outside. Okay, so that gives you your nice sort of isolated building, showing you only what you need to see and cutting away the outside. Now, the only thing we need to implement is our cutaway system isn't working though, because as we spin around, these walls are not hiding. So if we were to, face this wall and spin round, where's the player and what are they clicking on, right? So really, at this point, it's just a case of adding on the cutaway system to this building. So what we'll do for now is we'll just hide the roof, just so it's out of the way. And all I'm going to do is select these walls and include the ones below as well. Oops, start that again. I selected the floor tiles by accident. Okay, this is facing east, so those go into the east group. I'm going to select these tiles and shift and select. Oops, that's the floor. You deselect the floor of this group. Select those, add those to north, then select this set of walls and include this set of walls, add those to group west, select this set of walls, don't select that piece, and then shift, select those walls, add those to south. Now obviously I've given them the same name as this building over here, so what would happen is as we spin around in this building, it would also be hiding those. That's obviously only an issue if you are, if you've got two buildings that are visible next to one another. Obviously, if you, in this situation where you've got a building that's completely separate in distance from another building, you would never see that happening anyway. And when you leave the building anyway, when you do show walls, it's going to bring back those walls as well. So you wouldn't ever really notice it unless you are in close proximity to another building. But even then, if you're hiding the outside anyway, then it's also possible that you could, cull that group entirely. Or you could call these groups a different name, but then you'd obviously have to have duplicate functions and scripts for each building that has a cutaway system. You'd have to sort of weigh up how important it is to have groups with the same name and therefore they work across all scripts, or whether it's, whether that's just not a possibility, in which case you will then have to have some buildings that have a unique set of cutaway groups for that building. I've also put both the top and bottom wall pieces in the same group because I'm fine with the walls being visible no matter whether it's the top floor or the bottom floor. To me, that doesn't matter. Okay, so the only things that are in floor 2 group are the floor itself, not the walls. Okay, the walls only get hidden and shown by the camera direction. Okay, now an important thing to note as well about setting up a building: don't use, if you're going to do the cutaway system, don't use a combination of floor and wall in the same tile. So in other words, let me just show you what I mean. You can see that at the moment my wall pieces are separate from my floor pieces. Okay, what you don't want to have is a tile set that looks like that, where it's got the floor in. I need to paste it, but you get one in. Let me just click accept. That looks like that. You don't want your tiles to be like that, because what's going to happen then is, as you show and hide your walls, it's going to be hiding the floor as well. And if you're standing on a group that's currently hidden, you will get hidden as well. So if you don't want the player to go invisible and things like that, it's a good idea, if you're going to do the cutaway system, keep your walls and floors separate, as separate tiles. So then you can just focus on hiding the walls for the camera direction that you're facing, and not include any floors in that process as well. Now, for some reason, a floor piece got deleted, so don't know when that happened. Put that back. That should be added into group floor 2. Okay, let's bring the roof back. So, before we do that, however, we've now created our groups, but we need to implement the system again. So we need to select this tile and edit its script, and make sure that, as well as bringing those groups back, we also show walls now, because we need to make sure that whatever we've been cutting away comes back as part of this process as well. And then when we enter the building, as well as hiding the roof and the floor and the outside, we should also execute script, cutaway script, so that it hides the relevant wall for the camera direction when we enter the building. What we also need to do, and I'll do it at the very top, is we need to re-implement the player property, because we also need to detect when we're inside this building, in this case true, so that it enables the cutaway system when we spin the camera while we're in this building. And likewise, this should be false at the start, because we've left the building now, so this property should be made false. And that's all you have to do. Now this building will work with the cutaway system. So if we save and test, here we are in game. I forgot to add the roof back in the group, so it's going to be invisible for a moment. So you can see there's no roof currently. That's because I forgot to make it visible again in the map editor. But as soon as we step on this tile, it's going to bring it back, because that's what this tile does. But as soon as we enter, not only does it hide the roof and the floor and the outside, but it's now hiding the north walls. And if we enter the building a bit more, zoom out and start spinning around, it hides the east walls, the south wall, the west wall, etc., etc. And as we spin around, it's hiding those walls. And now if we go upstairs and spin around, again, it's hiding the relevant walls. So if we move up against this wall, for example, spin the camera around, it hides that wall so you can still see the player. Spin around, go downstairs. Keep spinning around, and then as soon as we leave the building, it should all come back. Okay, so there, and as we spin now, it's not hiding any walls, because we've set that property to false. Okay? So that is the cutaway system, really, in a nutshell. So from here, I'm sure you could mess around with the concept and expand it further yourself once you get to grips with it. It's very simple. It's literally just put things into groups that you want to hide depending on the camera direction or depending on the situation. So, for example, the roof. I mean, in a way, the building system is already a cutaway system, because we're cutting away the roof, we're cutting away the upper floor, and we're deciding when to show those. when and where to show those based on where the player is. Is he inside the building? Is he on the ground floor? Is he on the upper floor? So you just decide when and where to show these groups, and it's either based on the camera direction. It's either based on the camera direction for the cutaway for the walls, or it's based on the verticality of the player or the position of the player in or out of the building, depending on, the roofs and the upper floors. So if you had a floor 3, for example, you would just have, you would put that into a group floor 3, and then you'd have a set of stairs on this floor that goes up. And the same thing again. Let's just, imagine you had a set of stairs here. Ignore the lines for a moment. You would click this tile. This tile would hide floor 3, and then the stairs would show floor 3. Yeah, does that make sense? It's really very simple. And then obviously you would include floor 3 in the walls. Okay. Obviously, if at that point that's fine. So you would include the next set of walls. So if we had a floor 3, for example, then that would be now this high. Again, these walls here. If you had a set going across, you would then select these, and you would add them into the north group as well. Yeah, and then do the same east, south, west, and then those will get hidden when you're facing north as well. And then those will get hidden when you're facing south and east and west, etc. So it's really very simple to add on to this mechanic once you've set it up. It's literally just adding things to groups. That's all you need to do. And at that point, your scripts will just automatically work. Because once you've got these scripts that are removing groups based on the camera direction, you just add anything to the group for that camera direction, and it will automatically work with the scripts. But obviously, as I say, if you want to have independent buildings that aren't being affected by other buildings, then you might need to start thinking about, separate groups per building. But, play around with it and see how useful it is for your use scenario. But certainly that's the easiest way to implement a cutaway system, so that when the player enters a building, their view is not being obstructed either by the roof or the floor above, or by the wall that's currently nearest to the camera in front of the player, if that makes sense. So that will bring us to the end of this video. I hope it was useful and interesting, and it's given you some thoughts on how you could implement this. If you have any questions about anything that's covered in this video, again, feel free to go to the forum or the Discord and post the questions there. Again, check out the forum link in the YouTube description. It will have the project zip for you to download and play around with. But it will also have this video. You're already watching it, so that's kind of useless, but it's there anyway. But you can also, as I say, post questions or comments on the forum. I will also, if there's anything worth adding, any ideas I have since doing this video, I will add them to the forum. So do check the forum periodically. If you're coming across this video, do have a quick look at the forum, because there might be something there that's already answered a question you might have, or, an interesting idea that I've had since. But with that said, that'll wrap up this video. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next tutorial.